If one photo could sum up Tottenham Hotspur Football Club right now, it is that. Spurs players out on their feet after getting over the line against Hoffenheim yesterday. Archie Gray collapsing to the floor. Lucas Bergvall collapsing to the floor. But we got over the line and we won. We're going to talk in this video about what it means for Spurs. We're going to go through the game. Apologies, this is a little bit late on the Friday, but it's going to be more of a general conversation around what that game could actually mean for Tottenham going forward anyway. It's hard to, like I've said it so many times, win or lose. It's really hard to kind of analyse these games properly when we are so depleted. So Tottenham, please bring some players in and please bring some players back from injury. We're getting there, but we're also losing bodies. And that was kind of encapsulated in the fact that you've got players all over the place just dropping to the floor after Spurs win that game yesterday. I nearly said lose. I've just been so used to saying it. If you are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe, like the video as well. I have got a big announcement. There is a brand new football podcast coming with me and Seb Martin, who is another Spurs fan, on Monday. He's a great content creator. Go and check him out. I'm sure you probably have already on TikTok and YouTube as well. It's not a Spurs podcast. I can't make that clear enough. It's not a Spurs podcast. It's called FC Bottle Job. The link will be in the description to go and follow all of the accounts. It's going to be a general football podcast where we talk about all things Premier League. Obviously, there will be a little bit of Tottenham chat in there because we have to. But yeah, go and follow that. The support on it has been great so far. So let us know what you think. First episode out Monday. Right, let's talk about the game. Let's move on from this image. This was the Spurs 11 that was put out yesterday. Austin in goal, Porro, Dragusin, Davis, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Bentancur back, which is obviously a boost. Maddison obviously in the goals. Sonny in the goals as well. Richie starting through the middle and Dejan Kulusevski out on the right-hand side. I think... Look, we're going to talk about some individual player performances. I just want to start by saying Dejan Kulusevski looked absolutely out on his haunches yesterday. He looked knackered, absolutely knackered. And we're going to talk about Leicester game tomorrow. Could he get a rest potentially, maybe, going into that game? Who knows? Obviously, we haven't got Johnson. We haven't really got many options to rotate him. So we're kind of stuck in the rock and a hard place at the moment of having that excitement of players potentially come back. But also, there are so many players right now that are playing in that red zone where you just feel like they're on the verge of the injury and it's not going to make... it doesn't make the players coming back more exciting because you feel like you're just in this washing machine, just going around this cycle. It's just happening again and again and again. And when you feel like you get some respite, like we definitely did yesterday, it's such a unique situation that we're in at the moment. And also we're going to talk about some of Ange's quotes from the press conference today about the injuries, and we're going to talk about that. I've also got a video out on Zach Jalab's channel where we kind of did like how to fix Tottenham. So if you want to go and watch that, I'll put a link to that in the description down below as well. I also want to talk about James Maddison's thoughts after the game, but we'll come to that when we talk about him. It's a bonkers situation. It is really a bonkers situation at Spurs right now. Respite is the key word though with that win. Anyway, let's start off. Lovely goal to make it 1-0. Pedro Porro, we've seen, his inconsistency recently. I feel like he's starting to get back to a much more consistent level, but you think of that game against Tamworth, he really struggled at Arsenal. He struggled, but you think about how good he was against Liverpool and Newcastle before that. The quality of this pass is just obscene. And James Maddison, as I said on the thumbnail, in terms of being one step ahead, he is threatened. I tweeted out straight after this goal went in. He's threatened to score this goal so many times this season. Those kind of runs from deep, those Dele-esque runs that we've seen from him. I remember he did it against Everton. Nearly scored 2 goals in that game from it. He's done it so many other times as well. And the touch to bring it down. We also had a chance before this as well. Spurs started the game really, really well. And Hoffenheim were obviously open. They were playing that kind of high line in that first half. There was space in behind for Spurs to go and exploit it. And obviously they're playing with a real lack of confidence at the moment right now, given their situation. But... which is why it was so important that Spurs kind of compounded that and got the victory. But Maddison's touch is beautiful, and the composure in these kind of situations to finish like that on the half volley, roof of there, brilliant goal. I've spoken about Maddison so many times this season. I was critical of him after the Arsenal game because obviously he comes on at half time and there's a lot of pressure on him to come on and affect it. Excuse me. But I just felt like other than getting on the ball and keeping it ticking, he wasn't really doing much. I don't think he was being brave enough to show for it in difficult situations and difficult moments. Maybe we were trying to play out from the back, and there's a lot of question marks around Maddison's character sometimes about potentially being a bit flaky. And I understand why people say that, but I think this season he's been largely consistent. I think he's been, in terms of his output, would certainly suggest that as well. And, I do think he stepped up yesterday, and you have to give him the credit for that. Chance for Richie as well, obviously, after that. Good to see him getting good to see him running in behind when Spurs kind of got space. Obviously, first start back. Obviously, he scored on Sunday. It would have been great for him to get a goal last night, but it's a good save. Richie is an interesting one because obviously he came off in the... when did he come off? It was like the 55th minute, I think it was. 56th minute for Mikey Moore. It's clear at the moment that he... excuse me. He can't play more than, I guess... 45, 50 minutes. He came on at half-time. Did he come on at half-time against Everton, or was it after? I feel like it was maybe a little bit later. Or did he? No, he came on at half-time, didn't he? For Dragisin. It feels like, obviously, they're trying to be very, very careful with him. And obviously, the fact that Dominic Solanke is out for 6 weeks means they're going to want to protect him even more. Excuse me, my throat. It feels like I've got something stuck in it. So I thought Richie looked sluggish yesterday, but I didn't think he played badly. I just think he looked like a player who hasn't been playing much football at all. Obviously there was that tweet that was doing the rounds earlier of his TikTok comment saying, "Don't worry, I'll be here to play." I think one thing you can never question. Look, obviously Spurs are in the market apparently for a striker. There's been Brian Brobby links today, and I'm confused by that. I'm not sold on it. I don't know how strong those links actually are. I think obviously bringing in a striker would be nice in January with Solanke out for 6 weeks, and Richie. I think in an ideal world you ease him back in as much as possible. But the Brobby thing I don't really get, and I think Spurs need to desperately be looking at a winger, especially with Johnson out, Odegaard still out, Kulusevski playing in that red zone, on the verge of just tipping over to being our latest player injured. You could see that last night. It just looked completely out of puff. Kulusevski wasn't bad at all, but the fatigue is there certainly with him. But with Richie, I thought he did okay. Link-up play was decent. Hold-up play was decent. Getting into good positions. There were some passes that were a little bit off, but I just think he looked a little bit like a bloke who hasn't played a lot of football, and that's the reality of the situation. I think Ange did the right thing by protecting him and bringing him off, and hopefully he gets another start on Sunday, and hopefully Spurs get themselves into a position where they can maybe take him off in that Leicester game. Another good chance. The free-flowing football was really back. They were playing with confidence, like Porro getting into these kind of positions. Obviously, there was a lot of space to exploit. Maddison here does really well to nip in for the second goal. Lovely turn back into Son. And look, Son didn't take this necessarily convincingly. He kind of forced himself a little bit wider here. You'd maybe imagine he kind of goes straight at the goal. And he gets a bit fortunate with the deflection. But a goal, that is the most important thing. 10 goals and 7 assists for Sonny this season so far. And despite the fact that the performances haven't been great, and he looks like a player who is going over the hill in terms of being past his best, and maybe that's down to the system. That's also down to the amount of minutes that he's played. That's also just down to aging and fatigue. But that output still is crucial. And you are going to get that with Sonny over the course of the season. Individual games, there will be moments where he is really poor, and it's just like, you're sitting in the ground thinking, get him off. We need a different dynamic on that left-hand side. And I've spoken so many times about Spurs' wingers, and I really want Spurs to, there's a lot of chat about Tyler Dibbling. I've got a lot of thoughts on that, which I might say for a video if that kind of comes up and starts to gain intensity, because I think he's a fantastic player, and I think Spurs need to invest in those wide positions on both flanks really. But yeah, get Sonny a little bit more help, make him fresher, and you're going to see a better version of him. I think the system holds him back to an extent, but that output has still been crucial for Spurs. They had their moments, Hoffenheim, in that first half. They kind of came back into it, as obviously we watched the game. The momentum bar tells us that as well. In terms of, they had a couple of chances. I thought we defended the box fairly well in the first half. They had a couple of moments here. This was pretty, statuesque defending, but Brandon Austin makes a good save. Should have been 3-0. We should have gone into that half-time break 3-4-0 up, the chances that we did have, and we just couldn't quite make the most of it. But then things started to change in the second half. As you can see, it was almost like they sensed an opportunity and kind of smelt a bit of blood with Spurs. There's like a lot of teams are going to do, right? That's why you can't go into the game with a hell of a load of confidence right now. One, the result because of the results, but also teams are going to smell a little bit fragility. And look, getting over the line was the most important thing. We can pick apart the negatives of last night until the cows come home, because there were plenty. I thought our defending was poor, especially in that second half. We really lacked that outlet with Richarlison kind of coming off. Sonny going through the middle, we couldn't really get out at all and make it stick and just move up 10 yards to just, or like we're still, all those kind of things still sort of trying to play out from the back. And I get that sticking to the principles, but, managing a game and kind of getting if a team is banging at the door, just do everything you can to take the pressure off yourselves, especially with the fatigue that you've got, right? Just get yourselves up the pitch, get up 10 yards, play in their half for a little bit and just keep the ball. But they kept coming back at us. We were sloppy. I thought our defending was pretty passive. I thought, especially in this case, like the longer build-up to the penalty that was obviously overturned, it was far too easy just to cut through them. And I've got a real issue with how we defend from wide areas a lot of the time. Too many teams are able to kind of find these little combinations into either slip this little ball into the channel or kind of go wide and kind of get to the byline or kind of come back inside and cross. Like, they've got 3 players here. It's just that it's way too easy and passive, but it's not a penalty. Brandon Austin does really, really well. And again, he had a good game. This goal we've conceded too many times. Again, just on the counter-attack. Overlap, simple ball across the box, and it's in the back of the net. But thankfully, we restored the 2-goal lead. This was vintage Sonny. Vintage Sonny there. And I was really pleased for him that he got that. Obviously, he gave a little bit back to the fans. I think he's in his rights to do that as well. I also think he has to take the criticism on the chin. Being called what he was being called on Sunday, obviously, is completely unfair in my opinion. But it was good for him just to have that bit of confidence and score a proper Sonny goal, especially after the first one was a little bit more... a little bit more, I suppose, messy or not quite as clinical or clean. And I think, look, we were clinical. Obviously, we scored 3 goals, but it should have been more. And we should have been out of sight. And that's been a story of us for a long time. And it feels like we kind of have to go 3-4-0 up to be able to fully control that game and take the sting out of it. 2-0 was obviously a dangerous lead. But, we got that 2-goal lead restored and then they scored again. And again, it's just balls into the box. But... yeah, we got over the line. Like I said, there are far more negatives that I can touch on in just terms of specifics, but I just think it's important to give the recognition to that group for getting over the line in really difficult circumstances, and we're not in a good situation right now. But, to be fair, the players, I think, are sticking together. And again, I think on Sunday, it's so... I don't want to make it out like I'm flip-flopping or anything, or I don't want to, it's so easy to kind of feel like such a range of emotions kind of going from game to game. And because Spurs have naturally been obviously very up and down, we haven't even been inconsistent recently. We've just been poor. But this game doesn't mean that we've turned a corner. This game isn't a turning point for Tottenham. It can't be. In the grand scheme of things, there's not really a massive turning point for the club's ambitions unless the owners decide to put money in their pocket or leave. But in terms of this season, we might not get a turning point until all of those players come back. Or maybe the next international break, a chance to kind of reset and get everybody back that should be and really attack that last phase of the season with whatever cups we're in. The final would have gone by that point if we get there, obviously. Really attack the Europa League if we're still in it, FA Cup if we're still in it, and just try and make something of the league season. So we haven't turned a corner. It's not a turning point. In terms of what does it mean, I think it just means that it's just confidence. It's just a little bit of confidence. Winning games is everything. And look, we could, if we follow it up... with a defeat and a really poor performance on Sunday against Leicester, then we're just back to... I wouldn't even say back to square one, because like I said, I don't think this result means a hell of a lot in the grand scheme of things. I just think it's really important to just give the players the recognition they deserve for that effort they put in last night. Like I said, there were moments where the defending certainly was poor and certainly wasn't perfect, and we could have been sharper in front of goal and we could have kept the ball better. But in terms of having that unity and sticking together and getting over the line... you have to give them the credit for that. And I thought Maddison's interview after the game was really mature in that sense. And, they are struggling right now. You can see it. They are really, really struggling. And Maddison was kind of keen to hammer home the point about we've got 11 fit senior players. We've got 12 injuries at the moment. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it's just one thing on top of the other for this group. And mentally, that's very hard to deal with. So that's why winning games is the best tonic. Even if it's one game, take one game at a time and just try and move on and build a little bit of momentum that way. Like I said, we'll deal with whatever happens after Leicester when it comes. If it's a win, then great. Again, it's not a turning point. It's not we're turning the corner. It's just building something. We've got 3 tough games back-to-back after that, all away from home against Brentford, Liverpool, the Cup semi-final, and Aston Villa as well in the FA Cup on the Sunday. And again, we might have Romero and Van der Ven back for those games, but we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, in terms of what it means, I don't think it's a turning point. It's just one game at a time, but you have to give the players their flowers for the effort. 100%. Well done to Tottenham yesterday. And Ange, he was asked about what's going wrong at Spurs in the press conference yesterday, and I like the fact that he kind of bit back. Obviously, we've seen quite a lot of leaks coming out, Athletic articles, etc., Sammy Mockbell's article, etc. And I think Spurs fans, including myself to an extent, like kind of buy into it a little bit because you are you've seen the same story 10 times when we've sacked managers, and it's all the same thing about players are unhappy with the intensity of the training. But as Postecoglou has said, like, what training are we doing at the moment? With the volume of games that we've got, it's rest days, it's low tempo sessions. It's not as if the players are getting their hamstrings pulled off the bone in training. It's just, it's just more poor management to a degree, and we've spoken about this so many times, obviously. Negligence from the board not to give him the help that he deserves, but also there's an element of bad luck. And I thought this was quite a good way to round it off. Ange Postecoglou and what's going wrong at Spurs, it's just injuries. I mean, you can walk outside and say, geez, it's really bright, and say to yourself, maybe it's not the sun, but it is the sun, mate. We've just got injuries. And you can do a million investigations and talk to anonymous sources, kind of a bit of a dig at the journalists. You don't need to talk to anonymous sources. You can talk to me. Every decision that is made is from me. I am responsible for this. If you want a head on a stick, take mine. Again, taking responsibility. And again, whether you like Ange or not, you have to understand how much he's been hung out to dry here. And you have to say that he's taken a lot of this on the chin and taken a lot of the flack for it and taken responsibility, which other managers, when things have gone wrong in the past, haven't done. And he doesn't deserve a medal for that or anything. It shouldn't be a badge of honour, but it's the right thing to do. I'm absolutely 100% confident that we are in a better place as a football club today than when I started. Spurs are an absolute mess right now, on the pitch and off the pitch. But I think there is an element of truth in that if you zoom out just a bit. There is hope. There are green shoots. There's young players with incredible potential, but we need more. And that is down to the board to put their hands in their pockets and go out and make serious moves to give Ange Postecoglou the support he deserves and the best chance of this project actually succeeding, because I'm sick and tired of the board coming out after we lose every game and saying that we're sticking by him and we're going to put all the resources around him and get him the help. It's the 24th of Jan and we're still not seeing it. Brobby, maybe. That's another thing in itself. I think that's just... I don't get it. I really don't get it. But we'll talk about that if it does happen or gather more momentum. But good win for Spurs. That's all it is. Good win. Hopefully the start of some building blocks potentially, but I don't think it means that we've turned a corner. But it's just good to reflect on a win and take one game at a time. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to FC Bottle Job, subscribe to Daring and Doing as well on YouTube, my Spurs podcast. We are nearly at 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world if we could get there in the next few weeks before our 1 year anniversary. So thank you so much for the support on the channel. Leicester next up, video tomorrow previewing that game. We move up to Spurs.